Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Malorie's Weird World Adventures, the podcast. Today, I'm coming to you from back in the States once again. I am back in Los Angeles after having spent basically close to a month away, first in Germany and then in New York for the Explorers Club Gala, which I'm excited to tell you guys all about at a future date, because today we're going to be talking about Essen. Last I left you, I had told you about my time in the north of Germany. And basically from there, I transitioned down into Essen, where I recorded my last podcast, for the German Travel Mart. So first things first, let's talk a little bit about the German Travel Mart. I would be remiss to not bring that up after having gone to Essen specifically for that reason. There was actually a huge press conference that was held in the Museum Folkwang, which is free to enter, by the way, and had an incredible array of both modern and classic art from some of our favorite artists and also some unknowns as well. They heavily featured a lot of female artists, which I thought was exciting. And they had a special room where we were able to hear some of the heads of the German Tourism Board speak about, obviously, travel and tourism. And the good news is, according to market research, tourism is back to 77% of what it was prior to COVID, which is fantastic. It's been recuperating ever since. We're on a nice incline up. And the industry has almost fully healed from the long-lasting effects of the lockdown, thank the Lord. And we could not be happier about that. And thanks to sustainable powerhouses such as Germany, ranking in the top 10 of all European countries in the YouGov Travel and Tourism Sustainability Ranking. It was also named one of the countries dealing the best with climate change by the NVI, ranked 5th out of 117 countries by the World Economic Forum's Travel and Tourism Development Index and Sustainability, and listed 6th in the SDG index. Sustainable travel is on everyone's mind. Sustainable travel is really the travel of the future. Everyone wants to be green, and there are many, many destinations out there that are focusing on that. And what I love most about working with the German Tourism Board is that they only feature places or only invite the media they bring out to places that are sustainable and that focus on sustainability. And that is obviously very important. With 51 UNESCO World Heritage Sites and over 250 miles of hiking trails, Germany really is calling your name this year, and I do hope you head out to Germany. And part of their sustainable campaign that they're pushing is for you to stay a little bit longer to help reduce your carbon footprint. So, especially coming from the States, we can't just get rid of our carbon footprint. There's a part of travel right now that is just what it is, because we have to take a plane to get there. And there are actually many people working on the idea of an electric airplane right now, but we're not quite there. So in the meantime, we're still leaving behind a carbon footprint, but perhaps you can stay a little bit longer to make up for it when you travel to other places. And that's one of the big things that Germany is pushing right now. So when you go to Germany, you're likely going to go to the south of Germany for the warm, sunny weather, up to the natural parks of the Lüneburg Heath, maybe to Berlin or to Frankfurt or Munich or one of the big cities. But I do encourage you, the next time you come out, to stay a little bit longer and think about going to Essen while you do. You probably haven't heard of Essen before. I know I hadn't before the German Travel Mart. Essen is a city up by Cologne. I'm sure that's a landmark most people will recognize. And it's a very interesting industrial city with a very modern feel. Now, why is that? So one of the biggest, tourist attractions, the things that Essen has going for it is and I'm very sorry, my German is absolutely terrible, so I will butcher this, but the Zollverein coal mine industrial complex. So Germany basically for 135 years had this coal mine industrial complex that was the world's largest coal mining facility. It employed 8,000 miners during its peak, most of which lived nearby in Essen. So it was pretty much a mining town where most of the workers and population worked at the mine and then lived in Essen. In 1986, the coal mine was decommissioned and the walls actually came down and it became more of a tourist attraction. So now it's this giant complex with museums on its property, with the museum dedicated to what the coal mine used to be, so you can see what that looked like, with restaurants. There's an ice skating rink there and a pool. And there's these giant event spaces. We actually went to a dinner in one of the spaces there the first night that we were in Essen for German tourism. And it was pretty incredible. So the complex itself is really just like the star of Essen, and you should definitely check it out because I don't think you're going to see anything like it anywhere else. It really is quite unique and extraordinary, and it's really nice to go all the way up to the top too and get the nice view of that whole complex if you're able to do that. Also, while you're there, think about going into the Red Dot Museum, which talks all about design and what makes a successful design. So there's a lot of cool things you can do there. But I guess let's talk a bit about my experiences and what I did while I was in Essen, so you can have an idea of maybe what you'd like to do when you go, which I heavily encourage you to see all that you can in Germany and to stay a little bit longer by going to Essen. You can always fly out of the Düsseldorf airport, or you can take a train from Essen to Frankfurt to fly directly out of Frankfurt. So there are many options there for you. And let's talk about my time in Essen. So when I arrived in Essen, the first thing I did was a historical tour that talked all about the Krupp family, Alfred Krupp, and the family that followed him, and the footprint that they left behind in Essen and also in Germany. And the Villa Hugo, which actually just means hill, Hugo means hill, so the villa on the hill, is a massive estate where the Krupp family lived after Alfred Krupp had the home designed with modern elements in 1846. Alfred Krupp was actually famous for working with steel and specifically manufacturing the first seamless steel railway tire. He also did work in arms, so there's a lot of the family fortune that came from that. And they created the Villa Hugo, like I said, with modern elements for its time. For its time, they legitimately had a working heat and cooling system throughout the walls of this estate, which was unheard of at the time. But he would hire the leaders in science and development and architecture to make sure that these things were implemented. And when I first arrived, we were on the grounds, and the guide actually showed us the playhouse, basically, like the place that he built for his girls to play in when they were kids. And it was huge and incredible, and I wish I could have gotten a chance to see inside of that because that was just a really neat little nod. The Villa Hugo, it's beautiful. It has so much history and culture. It's really like the heart of Essen and the culture of Essen. And something else that was rather unique was that the Krupps actually They hired so many people to work in their estate that they actually built this complex of houses on the outskirts of their estate to house many of their workers. So it kind of became the heart of this mini city in a way, and there's still that whole development around the area that people can get houses at that were owned by the Krupps at the time for their workers. And their workers would have specific stores that they could shop at, and they kind of created their own community off the people that worked for them. And they also offered the first initial form of health care effectively for their workers as well. So the Krupps were very advanced, and again, like I said, they left a gigantic footprint in Essen. So that was something that was very, very, very unique that we got to see. And and so that was the history of Essen. Again, is very industrial, like I said, because even the story of Alfred Krupp goes back to the industrialization. The next day that I was in Essen, we actually went to the press conference, like I said, at the Museum Folkwang. And something about that really stood out to me that I cannot forget, I'll never forget, is the fact that they actually had live translation during the press experience because it was in German. And they had translators in the back that were working live to translate in the moment. So for us English speakers, they actually gave us these headsets that we would wear that had a little tiny like radio channel connected to it. And so we would get a live translation. So it's happening before our eyes in German, and then we're getting a live translation in our ears in English. And that was just a really cool experience. And for a minute, it took me the second, maybe I'm a little slow, to realize how it was being translated because I didn't see the translators in the back. And I'm like, this is magic. But that was actually a really amazing experience. And the museum itself, like I said, is something I cannot recommend enough. It was absolutely incredible. And for me too, you know, they did have a lot of Picassos, which is exciting. And they did have this Van Gogh that was their first big piece they were excited to share, which was also really exciting. But it was also pushing so many modern forms of art. And I'm actually not generally a big fan of modern art, but it was displayed and presented so well that I was pretty fascinated by it. They even actually have an exhibit right now for NFT art, and I've never even heard of that before. So that was also incredibly new and modern and just a refreshing idea. And they changed the pieces out so frequently that you're likely never going to see the museum the same way twice, even if you keep going back. So I definitely recommend that. And it's also free just because they're trying to push culture. So why would you not go to the Museum Folkwang when you're in Essen? Also, the Cafe Edda that's there is incredible. We went to a lunch there after the press conference, and it was really good. I mean, they had this cream of parsnip soup that you actually they like presented like a cappuccino in a cappuccino cup, so you could just like sip at it. And I really thought that was absolutely incredible. They had everything was delicious. And I mean, from the fruit skewers to the fish meals they had, to the little salad, to the cream of parsnip soup. Like, I recommend the cafe there wholeheartedly. We really enjoyed that. And part of Essen, too, you know, we kind of just discovered some of it throughout the day. After the press conference that day, me and my friend Arthur were walking back to the hotel, and we went down this little side street where there was tons of shopping. We discovered this old church that was the old leper church that was, I mean, centuries and centuries old. And it was so tiny, and so we kind of explored it, and just even that, like, you never know what you're going to find, and that was pretty cool. Something else. So when you go into Essen, it's likely that at one point you'll take a train in and arrive at the main train station. When you get off the train station, you literally just cross the street and you're at the main tourist information center. So if you go to the tourist information center, they have this immersive VR experience. And I will admit, whenever I hear, oh, we have VR, at this point I kind of just roll my eyes because, you know, I have a VR unit at home. It's become very commonplace and everyone is trying to jump on that now, and it never really delivers. This is the most immersively insane and wonderful VR experience I have ever done because it actually allows you to interact with the world around you. So you get these VR glasses and you get a headset and you get a little like GPS device, which is like a phone basically, that you connect with. And then you follow, so the screen appears on your glasses and you can still see the world around you, but then all of a sudden like this transparent other overlay image comes up over what you're seeing actually in real time, and that's kind of what you follow. So a GPS shows up in your field of vision and it tells you where to go. Now, I'll admit it took me a minute to figure out where the heck I'm going and to get my bearings, but then once you know, like, you're in. And so I'm following a GPS that's projected in my line of sight, and I'm going down to these points of interest, and when you get there, these scenes start to play. So it tells you to look at a building facade in this spot, and you do, and then a scene plays out in front of you. And so there's this whole interactive story, and it's all being overlaid and projecting itself over the real world around you in this like transparent, like taking you back into the past kind of way. And it was wild. I mean, really, I mean, you know, it's kind of like the VR of the future, like what we might think we see in TV and movies. But this is the first time I've ever seen anyone actually try to accomplish that. And it was exceptional. And, I will admit, like, it's going to take some getting used to, for sure, because not everyone's going to immediately be excited to jump into something like that, because it's confusing. You have to figure out if you're going in the right direction and where you need to go and what you need to do. But then when you're in, it's absolutely worth trying it out, because it's such a cool and unique thing to do. I will say you need to pay attention to your surroundings, because I had to cross the street a couple of times and I'm in this VR world and I'm like, oh yeah, there's really cars here. So, it definitely takes a level of focus, but it is absolutely worth the experience. I thought that was really cool. And like I said, I was kind of not really sure about wanting to do it, but I'm very glad that I did, because it was exceptional. It was unlike anything I have ever done before. Something else that I think is really cool about Essen is it does have a great location. So if you're staying in Essen, you can take a quick day trip down to Dusseldorf or to Cologne or places around the area that might be of interest to you as well. So it's very well centralized, and it's really a great place for you to stay, to be able to do a lot of things at once. But I also would recommend hiking if you are into urban hiking too in Essen. I did an urban hiking experience, and you don't really know what you're going to expect, but you take a train out to the outskirts of Essen, and then you climb up a little bit of a hill, and all of a sudden you're in this breathtaking scenery. You're walking high above the river there and going through these paths in the trees, and it's a mix of like suburbia and then just complete nature for a while. And then, we passed through this old cemetery, which I'm all about that. And that was very exciting, because everything is so green and aged, from the tombstones to the grass there to the trees to the old to the old stone wall around it. And that was gorgeous. And you get to kind of see Essen from a different way, which is kind of above and distant. And it really is pretty. Like for a city that was, I should say, so industrial, they have really flipped and become incredibly green. That's one of their big pitches now. They're very green. And even though it's a city, there's so many hiking and nature experiences around it. And it's very, very, very beautiful. We had lunch that day out overlooking the water, which was really nice, on the outskirts of the town. And then we got to see the ruins of the Eisenberg Castle, which I will tell you, I love castle ruins. They're really my favorite thing. I did not expect that at all, and it was very exciting to kind of come see the partially still standing walls and structure of this castle. So this hike, and there's 3 big, gigantic hiking routes around Essen, and then of course you can come on and off at any point, and so really you can create your own hiking experience. And it is urban hiking, because it's not just in nature, but you just don't know what you're going to find. There's so many cool little things along the way. And that was the day that we also went up into the old coal mine and got to really see it up close and personal, which was just fabulous. And overall, it was an incredible time. We really had an exceptional time in Essen. So I guess getting back on track here, I would recommend Essen for anyone looking for an artistic time, a modern time, an industrial time. It has that flair of all of that. So it's a great place for artists, especially with the museum that's there. And it's a cool place to throw an event, because like I said, they had the big event they threw in Zollverein in that big coal mine. And we also had one at the old airport in a hangar. And they had a giant blimp with, the German travel mart, Essen, projected on it, which was really cool. Everything is very modern in a way, like I said, but there is still a little bit of that old city center, like there is in many German places. There is an old church, which houses this old Madonna, which is worth seeing as well. So I would definitely add Essen for at least a day or two on your trip to Germany. And like I said, it's a short, maybe 30-minute train ride from Essen to Dusseldorf, where there is an international airport. It's probably an hour or so from Cologne, which is another huge city. And I actually had my own adventure into Cologne several years ago at this point. I was doing a press trip in Bonn, Germany. And Cologne and Bonn are also very close together. Bonn is just a little bit below Cologne. And I had a free day, and I looked up the strangest things nearby because, of course, I did. And there was a church in Cologne that supposedly housed a bunch of virgin bones. So it's called the Church of St. Ursula. And basically, St. Ursula was a Roman British princess who, in the 300s, decided that she would go on a pan-European pilgrimage. She brought together her favorite and closest virgin best friends. I don't know why that's important to say they're virgin, but I guess they all were virgins. So she got all of her best friends together. They were all virgins. And then you kind of have to wonder, I guess, right then, how you can fit 11,000 friends? How you can fit 11,000 virgin friends on a ship, but I guess she did, according to the tales. As the story goes, they were captured by the Huns in Cologne, and pretty much they were all beheaded, and Ursula was shot dead. So the Huns at the time when the story was, I guess, prevalent were like the scary threat. So there was these 11,000 virgins that all came together that were killed by the Huns and beheaded, and then Ursula was shot. And so their bones were all collectively found and put together at a church in Cologne. This story came from a mass grave that was found in Cologne in 1155. They had found some of the remains that they believed to be the virgins from the story, but then when they found this mass grave in 1155, they're like, okay, this is what we're looking for. This is Saint Ursula and her virgin friends. And so today, they are put in a massive reliquary filled with dozens of busts and walls, and they're all covered in bones in this church in Cologne. And obviously the church is called the Church of St. Ursula. Now, I was very excited to go see this church when I found out about it, and I had a full day, and I was so excited. And I left Bonn early in the morning to go up to Cologne. However, it was windy that day, and the Deutsche Bahn, the train, was not quite working the way it was supposed to, and all of the trains kept getting delayed. And so I got on the train, I was ready to go, and then it got delayed while we were sitting there. And I waited and I waited, and eventually we did go, but I believe we were like an hour late at that point. So I sat on a train for an hour for a 30-minute train ride up into Cologne. Of course, the main cathedral in Cologne, when you first get off the train station, it's just right there, and it is breathtaking, and it is absolutely something you want to see. But then this small little church is up around the side, up one of the streets. It's a pretty close walking distance to the main chapel. So I walked to the Church of St. Ursula, and I was so excited. And I get to the door, and I had checked a million times to make sure it was open, and of course it was closed. It was closed, especially that day, because Carnival was happening that week. And while it wasn't happening in that moment, they did close the church for the day, and that was just devastating. So I got so close from being able to see all these beautiful virgin bones. What a funny thing to say. And nope, didn't work out. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm going back. So I hopped back on the next train to Bonn, but lo and behold, again, the wind had not calmed down, and it took another hour of delayed trains to make it back to Bonn. But the good news is I did make it back. And then, of course, when I got to Bonn, I tried to order room service, but it was closed that day and nothing was open. So I wound up walking to McDonald's, and I got a Big Mac. So I didn't get to see my virgin bones, but I did get a Big Mac. So that was something that happened that day. Because there's, every time I've been to Germany, there's just that one day where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get McDonald's. It just tastes better there. I don't know. And I do. Anyway, that's my rant. So I highly recommend going to Essen and seeing all of this like artistic, modern, industrial beauty that this old city has, following the footsteps of the Krupp family, which is a fun little tale in itself. You can definitely find a guide to kind of help show you everything in the area that is worth visiting, and they can cater it to your specialty as well. So again, you can do that. And then maybe take a journey to Cologne and see the actual Cathedral of Cologne, the huge domineering building, and then sneak away for a bit to check out the Church of St. Ursula and those bones of the 11,000 virgins that were slaughtered by the Huns. Anyway, I went off on a tangent there. It's fine. It's fine. So, I hope you will go to Germany. So at this point, I've been all over southern Germany, I've been all over northern Germany, and I've been out to the west of Germany, but I've never actually been to eastern Germany. So that's my next goal in visiting Germany. It's actually quickly becoming one of my favorite places in the world to visit. I really, really have to say, I only slightly had the interest in Germany originally, but after going so many times, I love it. It's become one of my favorite places, if not my favorite place to visit. Like I said, the southern part of Germany has its own beautiful charm to it. It's very old city. There's so many things to see and Roman baths, and there's all of the folklore, which I just love. And then northern Germany has more of the elemental nature, the fishing towns, the Lüneburg Heath, which is just this massive nature park, which, I mean, just natural setting that is magical in its own way. And then, the cities all down the west side of Germany have their own charm. So next time I will have to make my way out east for a new adventure. When I do, I'm sure you will hear all about it. And I guess that's all I have to say today. It was a little bit shorter, but I'm glad to give you guys that download on all that was Essen. And I can't wait for the next podcast where I will be catching you up on the Explorers Club annual dinner that I happened to go to New York City for. And I will say it was honestly probably the greatest weekend of my life. So I cannot wait to tell you about that next time. And until then, everybody, stay weird.